I'm Chris Good, AKA Goodie, bass guitarist, backing vocals, co-founding member of the band All the Villains, formerly known as Device.
Gentle chill that takes the heat away.
So I grew up in England, on the southwest coast of England, in a beautiful county called Dorset. Little village called Loaders, and grew up there with my brother, my mum and dad. I couldn't have asked for a better backdrop for childhood, really. It was great. My mum and dad were really hard workers. My dad cleaned the streets, my mum cleaned the local school. I also grew up in the 80s, and unfortunately in England at a time, it wasn't great to be living in England if you didn't have a whole lot of money. We were raised on eating liver that was as tough as old leather boots, and you sat there and ate it until you were done. So it really came from nothing. I think I was always surrounded by music, but it was always very kind of like elevator music. My dad always listened to like organ music or choirs from cathedrals. But the main influence upon me when I first started recognizing it, we would come down in the mornings and have our cereals, we're getting ready to go to school, and we would just have the radio on. And I suddenly remember certain things creeping in where I'm going like, whoa, that's different. I remember hearing Kraftwerk's song, The Model, doom, 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 doom. And it was like, this is insane. It's a completely different sound I'd ever heard of. It made me think of Space Age. And at the time in the early 80s, we had a lot of influence of space programs coming into our lives. We had Battlestar Galactica, Star Wars, all these wonderful things which just made us escape or take us to a different place from the grimy England which we were currently living in, with miners' strikes and no electricity 3 days a week. That's where I first started noticing things, and that was probably the biggest influence. And all this really diverse music was just out there, Duran stuff that was just kind of like, this is so cool, so different. I started to realize that there is a link between music and popular culture. My mum and dad were dancers. They used to go and do ballroom dancing. So we would go to like these big dance halls with my parents. But what got me is that what happened in the interval is that they stopped playing all the ballroom music. What they did was usually put on like these rock and roll type songs like Elvis Presley, Eddie Cochran, Buddy Holly. And there was these two guys, who were brothers I believe, who would always dress up in what were called teddy boy outfits. They would dance rock and roll style. And I was so fascinated by it until I started to learn what they were dancing. And I would eventually become the 8-year-old kid that went out there with them and also did rock and roll dance. I started getting into like rock and roll. And I remember one of my first cassette albums was Heartbreak Hotel by Elvis Presley. So I was finding music from all over the place, the radio, going to the dances, and it just started to rub off on me.